So I want to take a moment up top to just acknowledge all the good stuff. First off, we have a name. It is official. We're christened in the eyes of the law and the Lord. And I can officially say this. Welcome back to Unclear. Very happy to announce that. It only took us, this is now episode 12. So it didn't take us too long, you know? Just into double digits. It's all good. But it's good. And okay, we're going to lean into it for a few reasons. One, 12 is sort of a lucky number for me. So it feels good, feels right. We're happy with the name, Unclear, for many reasons. Maybe there's a podcast to be made about that itself, but it's all good. And also because, just call us a disco revival, because we got all the platforms, okay? We're on your Spotifys, we're on your Googles, we're on your Apple Podcasts. We are out and about in audio form. And guess what? We're still in the OG, the video form, the audio video scenario. If you are just listening, then thank you for joining us. And if you're watching as well, then what you'll know is to commemorate this special occasion and celebrate the mood in general, but also it's summer here in Rome. You know, all of these reasons we're feeling good. I've got a fab shirt on, so I hope the viewers are enjoying that. And for the audio participants, you'll just have to imagine that I look great. So it's really a turning point. Episode 12. We're out and about, and we're putting ourselves out there for approval. I'm putting myself out there. And, that segues nicely into my topic. Someone else's approval that I was looking for and found myself denied thereof. And what I wanted to talk about today is that I broke up with my therapist. Now, you may be already yelling at your device, audio or visual, and to rightly say, Tom, you probably shouldn't view this as a romantic or quasi-romantic relationship. This relationship with the person who is giving you clinical help. And you're right. You're right. You're right. You're correct. I shouldn't. However, a lot of similarities. And with this particular therapeutic care, a lot of similarities, and even ended in a similar way, and ended because of similar reasons to you might find in a romantic relationship. And that's what, brings me to my topic today and presents several forms of concern, right? Now, I've done therapy a few times in my life. Once when I was very young. Interesting. Okay, I've done it at each of the 3/3 of my life to date. So it's around 11. I sought out professional help, or rather, my parents did, because I was going through some stuff. And what I remember is that person had a very soft, Germanic kind of accent. We talked about everything that was going on, and my parents were in the room. Yeah. I don't know if that was helpful or itself quite scarring. But he gave us a really good analogy of viewing our lives, from a broader perspective, from a hot air balloon, we would float upwards and view our lives from this vantage point. And maybe we could start to see things differently from this hot air balloon. That's about it. That's about what I remember from that. So, and it was a single session. So who knows if it was generally helpful. But it was good to talk. And it was good to be introduced to the concept, I think. And so, marking the end of my second third of life to date, fingers crossed. Again, I was going through some stuff, and I sought out professional help as provided by my university. And they recommended me to someone in the city, and so I saw them for a decent period of time. But my memory of that is really that I would just go to see this person on a regular basis. But I didn't feel like I could get out of work to go and do it. So I would go and see them on my lunch break. And where my other lunch breaks in the week were very short, like, I'd go to the other room, eat my sandwich, come back. I want to say it was like Mondays, and I would inexplicably get in my car, drive to where I think it was counselors, whatever, drive to where they were, be there for an hour, drive back. And inevitably I would just talk at this guy. He was a very good listener. And I would just tell him stories and cry. And so I would drive back to work with, blood-stained eyes and big bags under my eyes, and just meeker than I had left. And as I say, much later than I would on any other day. And somehow I thought I was getting away with this, and it wasn't impacting my work time. And again, it was good. It was good to talk. It was helpful to have a cry on a regular basis. But I don't know the extent to which it helped outside of having that, level of support. I don't feel like I was hoping to take away tools, and I was hoping to find revelatory things. And I think we scratched on some of those, but whatever. He tried, and what I remember is saying something about at the very end, when I knew this was going to be my last session for whatever reason. I think potentially when I moved out of the city. And I said to him something along the lines of oh, well, I always felt embarrassed to tell you this kind of stuff. And he went, that's the kind of shit you should have been saying to me. So I could tell that I hadn't opened up with him. And he was hoping to have a bit more of a road that we could get somewhere so that I could do that, so he could be better at his job by me being a better patient. But, we never got there. It was good. It was helpful. It was beneficial, and it was needed. But I think we scratched the surface of a lot of things. So, cut to the end of this latest third. We're now in the present day, is what I'm trying to say. And it's the pandemonium. It's COVID. It's the plague. We're stuck inside. And I think, like everyone, thoughts are beginning to catch up with me. And I recognize patterns in myself. And I'm just like, hey, maybe it would be a good idea to talk to someone. But I can't go see anyone. So let's try out one of these like online services. Like I listen to a lot of podcasts. That's why I'm making one. And they mention things like there's BetterHelp, there's Talkspace. I'm sure there's others. And there's like online and video and messaging services with licensed professionals, which, you know, for me is kind of changing the game. Because again, not only can I not leave the house, but I'm still in this mindset of like, I couldn't possibly let looking after myself interrupt my 7.5 hours of working during the day, which of course is definitely an issue that should have, and I hope was brought up with said professional help, because, you know, that's an issue in and of itself, but whatever. So I got the app, and this is where it begins to feel like dating, because if you've dated in the last 10 years, then chances are you've used an app and you see faces of people and you read a little bit of information about someone that you could date, and you say, oh, that sounds like my kind of thing, and they say, here's what I'm looking for, and you say, oh, that's me, and here I am on this app for therapeutic support, and guess what? I see faces of people and they say, these are my qualifications, and here's some examples of the stuff I do, and here's what I'm good at. And I say, oh, that sounds good, or that sounds like not me. And I think it stops short of swiping, but it's this kind of level of like, I get to choose, customer is always right, swipey swipe interactions that remind me distinctly of dating apps that are out there. Yeah. So that's how this relationship begins. And I try a few. Like I didn't only speak to one person on the app. So again, much like dating, you don't just speak to the first one. You try them for a little bit, and then you say, actually, this isn't working for me. And then you go back into the pool and you try somebody else. So, you know, some people you just find that you're not in the same rhythm as. Some people, well, this was the first, when I first started to get annoyed with the app itself, is that it said the whole point of it is that their professionals could practice anywhere, as in on the internet, because there I was, potentially miles away from whoever was providing the service, right? So you think that would be part of why those people would sign up to provide their services on the app. However, more than one person that I was matched with said, oh, excuse me, are you currently resident in the state of California? No, I'm not, I'm afraid. Oh, okay, well, I have to terminate this now. But they've already asked you things like, what brings you here today? And for some reason they asked that first. So I've given the full spiel of like, well, you know, I guess I'm looking for, and I think it all started when I've given them a paragraph about me, maybe even a video, and no. They only after that do they say, oh, thank you for sharing all your deepest, darkest truths to a stranger, but just to let you know, we can have no more contact, so goodbye. So that was my first gripe with using this app. But eventually I started seeing someone on a regular basis. I mean, you're starting to see how I can build up this expectation or this understanding that we're in a relationship that has parallels to the way we run romantic relationships in the digital age. Okay? You see where I'm coming from? I'm not completely delusional. I hope that's your takeaway. So I start seeing someone on a regular basis. And this thing's going great. The app allows you to see this person face to face, quote unquote, because it's a video call, I never meet the person IRL, okay? So you do a video call once a month, and that's great. And that's what that's obviously the best bit, because you have a real interaction that's fluid. But in between then, you can message them whenever, and the message can be text, the message can be voice, the message can be video. I think, within a certain length of each of those things. And you can even send each other files. I never thought about how dangerous that could be. But you can do all of those things. And it's all within the platform, so you never have their personal number. So it's all pretty good. And I remember, speaking very highly of it, and someone who themselves was interested in maybe seeking professional help to talk about things that they wanted to talk about, said, I think I'll wait. I think I'll wait until COVID's over, which of course we all thought that would be a short time at the beginning. They said, I think I'll wait until COVID's over because I want to do it for real. I'm like, oh yeah, well, I'm doing it for real. Like, we message all the time, and I can send voice notes, and they hit me back pretty regularly. And this person that I'm talking to is saying, oh no, but I mean, like, for real. I'm like, oh, okay, so I understand you want to do it in person. They're like, no, I just want to speak to a person. And it sort of dawns on both of us that we're not understanding each other. I'm like, I'm talking to a person. You know that, right? This is a licensed professional that I'm messaging with. Like, that's kind of the basis of the service. Like, it is actually sort of, you pay money. It's sort of expensive. And that's because I'm talking to a licensed professional. And the person who's asking, they laughed because they were like, oh, now I understand why you speak so highly of this. I thought you'd been speaking to an AI this whole time. And they thought I was having a, revelatory psychological experience talking to just like generated words and text of like an app that's totally self-contained and on my phone. I'm like, well, that's great. You obviously have a very high opinion of where technology is these days, or a low opinion of me and my standards for the care that I seek. But no, I'm talking to a real person, and what's better is I message them a lot, sometimes more than I message my friends and family during this crazy time of being disconnected. So, yeah. It just makes me laugh to think that, this whole time they saw me messaging away or knew that I was doing this and really thought that I was just speaking to a robot. But as I say, everything seems to be going well with the therapist, who is a real therapist, and everything seems to be trending in the right direction. And I'm sharing a lot. She doesn't need to reciprocate because that's not her role. But I'm sharing a lot. I'm putting a lot out there. And in general, I feel that I'm being heard, listened to, responded to, and guided in the right direction. And then it just seems to decline. It just feels harder and harder to maintain contact with this person. Like, I send a message, and then I maybe send another message, and then I maybe send another message, and that's fine. Again, it is perfectly acceptable for me, and she says at the top, it's perfectly acceptable to reach out as many times as you need to, as and when you need to. And she says, Tom, you can reach out, but I can only obviously respond when I can respond. And I'm like, oh, absolutely. And of course, even though, I am paying for this service, but of course, I'm only paying a certain amount, and this professional has to balance it with her other professional duties and her other responsibilities in her life and at work. And I understand that. And yet, at the beginning, in those first weeks and maybe even months, we had a pretty good thing going where I feel like I would reach out a lot and I would write a lot of messages, but I still felt like I was getting good responses. So when it came round to that sort of semi-regular video call, I feel like we were just kind of recapping and getting into further depth on things that I'd already said and already brought up and we'd already discussed in the message in the chat, which is fantastic. That's exactly what I was hoping to get out of this. And more than any of those previous therapy attempts in my life, I felt like I was coming into it with the right mindset. I was getting the right thing out of it. Progress is being made. I'm being caught off guard by questions I hadn't considered. I'm thinking further on these things that I brought up, trying to see them with new perspectives. And it's great. And then, like I say, the messages just start getting a bit further and further in between and fewer. I've completely messed up that idiom, but you get what I'm saying. I feel like I'm struggling to get a text back. And then the video sessions become about cramming into this hour or so that we have allotted to us all the things that I've wanted to say that have gone unresponded to. I'm like, oh, hey, and of course, from a couple of weeks ago, did you see that? And I'm trying to bring these things up. And it feels like I'm blasting through this time, and I don't even feel like in that hour I have the opportunity to say, and by the way, I'm feeling a little bit left on red by you. Because it's not even that I feel like that's the wrong thing to say. I feel like I've only got so much time in my hour to bring it up. And so I want to go through these other things that I haven't really discussed, and I feel like are pressing, for me at least. And so eventually I do get to bring this up, whether I do it by message, I can't remember. And she says, oh, Tom, you need to realize, of course, that I do have a lot of clients. And I say, oh, absolutely. Yeah, of course I realize, like, this is your job. This is, I'm just one of many people. I totally can appreciate that. She says, yeah, no, thank you. No, yeah. And the problem is that I've taken on too many clients. I'm just like, what do you mean? And again, I didn't really know how best to say this, but I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because isn't the whole thing here that you take on the right amount of clients? Like, I don't know how to do your job, obviously. I'm not going to tell you how to do your job, but it seems crazy to me to overbook yourself when this whole thing is like, well, you're seeing clients in real life, you're seeing clients on the app, you're trying to have a non-professional life just of your own. And now you're saying you have overbooked yourself? And I start thinking, I'm like, is one of them truly beyond help? And, is that taking up your time? Have you got someone who's an arsonist over here that you're trying to support and help out? And here I am with my anxieties and fears that I want to talk to you about. And they probably, I'm back at the queue. But the issue for me is that's one of the things that I want to talk to her about. I'm like, oh yeah, I sometimes feel like I'm at the bottom of people's priority list. And she hits me back with, Tom, I'm afraid to say you're at the bottom of my priority list because there's so many other new clients that I have. And I'm like, okay, great. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that my fears have now been confirmed by the very person that I want to discuss my fears with. And then I start getting, in my head, I'm getting shitty about it. I'm like, well, I'm paying for your time and I feel like I'm putting in the effort. So you got to hit me back. And again, you see how this mechanism outside of the payment, you see how this feels like I'm like a relationship. I'm like, I'm putting in this. What are you putting in? Are we working towards the same goal still? Do we still have the same dreams? Are we on the same page? Do we need to reconnect? Again, I want to reiterate, money should not change hands in a romantic relationship. But it just felt like there was this uneven pull on one another that I just really smacked to me of the kind of dependency in a relationship, which was a topic that I really wanted to discuss in therapy. So it just got very meta. So I was like, okay, can I, if I can't get your time in this sense, what else can I be doing? And she's like, oh yeah, great. And she started sending me PDFs. And that's fine. I like homework. I've always been a nerd. I've always been a friggin' tryhard. I like homework. I'm happy to do the homework. But when you get in PDFs that are like, have you felt sad today? I'm just, again, I don't want to be a ruthless capitalist, but I don't feel like this is what I am shelling out for. I was sort of hoping for a bit more of a personal touch. And again, now I'm thinking of my friend saying like, oh, you're just talking to a robot? And at this point, I'm just filling out PDFs for myself. So I'm like, robot sounds a lot better. AI sounds a lot better. Let's get that involved. So again, I'm trying to express these fears, but also like trying to make the most of the therapy. So we get to the video session. I'm like, so I know we didn't really get to this in the message, but here are the things I want to talk about. And we bosh through them. And then in the last 5 minutes, I'm like, and by the way, I don't, I hate to bring this up, but like, could you care about me a little bit? Feels like I'm asking a lot. And, maybe I could have gone back onto the app and found a new person. Maybe I could have started this process over again. But at this point, it's been months. And we had a good few months and we've had a bad few months. So I feel like I've put in effort. I genuinely feel like there's progress being made. And I feel like the progress made to this point merits trying to continue down the path. I'm hoping maybe somebody else in this large roster, they drop off. They're cured. They transcend. And I get a bit more time. So this is what I'm hoping for all the time. And I'm like, hey, is there anything else we can do here? Can we change this up at all? And she's like, did you do the PDFs? I'm like, yeah, I did the friggin' PDFs, okay? I've done the thought exercises. I'm doing the homework. Can you and I start to reconnect again? She's like, yeah, sounds great. I'll do what I can, obviously, but have you tried gratitude lists? I'm like, no. Sounds like more offline work, but sure, I'll have a crack at it. What is a gratitude list? She says, you wake up in the morning and you write down what you're grateful for. I'm like, okay. Sure. Okay. The problem for me is this. I feel like I've come to this person because I'm at a point in my life when, the world's crazy. Things are breaking down around us. Contemplating the future, contemplating my own feelings around anxiety and inadequacy and wondering what my path forward into this scary future is. And she says, Write down a list every morning of how grateful you are. And I'm like, doesn't that seem fucked? Doesn't that seem fucked up, I say? Because doesn't it seem crazy to wake up every morning and have to write down what you're grateful for and what you're happy about? Shouldn't life be sweet enough? If you're telling me that life's worth living, why do I have to remind myself of that? Like if everything's so great and I'm a privileged individual, which I am and I accept and I embrace, I guess. If everything's so awesome, why do I have to write down this list? And also, isn't that going to be difficult? What am I going to say? Today, I'm grateful for my job. Tomorrow, am I not grateful for my job? Can that come up again? Am I going to write the same list every day? And if that's the case, and I write down that I'm grateful for my job, and then I sit down on my desk, I'm like, fuck this job. Then what's the list for? And she's like, well, I think you're focusing on things being happy all the time and things being awesome all the time. And I just said, I'm like, yeah. Isn't that what we're going for? Like, I accept that there are a range of emotions. There's a spectrum of feelings that I can have. And I'm allowed to oscillate between ups and downs. All good. But isn't the goal here that, yeah, we reach happiness? That we feel happiness? The point of the gratitude list, surely, the point of us talking here is that I don't wake up and have to write down why I'm grateful. I wake up and I'm grateful because I know that life's good and I feel that life's good. And I don't have to remind myself, right? She's like, I mean, I guess. I'm like, I guess what I'm feeling here is that I'm supposed to be connecting with, my inner child. I'm supposed to be reconnecting with that truth of myself so that I can move forward in life and feel that boundless happiness and richness of emotion that I felt as a child, right? That's who I'm trying to connect with. She's like, yeah, absolutely. Inner child, 100%. Yeah, it's all good. We're trying to get back to that, so you can be your most creative self, be your most true self. I'm like, oh, yeah, fantastic. I'm like, so the gratitude list then, like, no kid has to wake up and write a gratitude list. Kids don't wake up and think, life kind of sucks, but at least I've got my toys, my parents, whatever. They just wake up and know that. And I'm like, isn't that what we're trying to get to? And she's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, okay, well, you sound reluctant about this, but I'm trying to get to a place where, like, I can experience, maybe not every moment, but I can experience that kind of boundless joy and true euphoric happiness. Not every moment, but I can experience that like I did when I was a kid. And she just goes, well. I'm like, what do you mean, well? She's like, well, I mean, euphoria? Like, are we aiming a little high with euphoria? And I just said, I think this is my last session. I don't necessarily think she was wrong. But we talked a lot about the inner child, and that's, I guess, what my impression was, that we could get back to that state of being a kid, experiencing the ups and the downs and the truest self. And here she was, struggling to, I'm struggling to command her attention. And I feel like we're hanging on by a thread, and she just says, it's never going to really be like that. you're never going to be happy like that. And I wasn't necessarily looking for her to guarantee results, but just in that context, that wasn't exactly what I was looking to hear. And so that was my last session. And thus our relationship, non-romantic, but with shadows of, that's where it ended. And I think it's tough. I think it is an unreasonable goal, perhaps. But I think there are ways to talk with your patient about understanding the difference between being a child and being an adult. And I think there are ways to say, I'm overbooked and I can't give you what you need right now. But to me, it's not a PDF. And to me, if you can't tell me that there are some things to look forward to, and maybe there are opportunities for euphoria at some point in my future, if we can't have that relationship, then maybe that's not what we're looking for in each other. Maybe we're not suited. And maybe I should have gone back to swiping, but instead, I said, just like giving up on a dating app, I said, I think that's it for me. I think I need to focus on myself for a little bit. I think I need to find out who Tom is. I've got the PDFs, so I can do it in my own time. But that's why I broke up with my therapist. And that's what I think the problem is.